Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Bleav in Mavs with Mo Murphy. As always, I am your host, Mo Murphy. Want to get straight to it. I apologize for not, putting out an episode after Game 3 or putting out an episode before Game 4. Had a little 24-hour bug on Memorial Day. Was sick, throwing up, couldn't hold down anything. And then Tuesday, the day of Game 4, it was my birthday. Turned 29, so celebrated. Kind of just was recovering from being sick, so didn't really have time to record, or probably wouldn't have put out a quality episode. So instead of wasting everybody's time, I wanted to get rejuvenated, get re-energized, watch Game 4. Was hoping we'd be able to talk about a sweep and what it looks like for us in the NBA Finals, and kind of was hoping to be able to finish out over the next week talking about things that the Dallas Mavericks need to be able to do in order to win the NBA Finals, but that's not the case. It will be the case eventually, and that's one thing I do want to talk about. So the Dallas Mavericks lost 105-100 last night. They're leading the series 3-1. I want to talk to certain individuals, a certain crowd. The crowd I want to talk to is the crowd that's panicking because Minnesota won one game. All right, like there were a lot of people on social media last night, post-game, really kind of like wondering, is Dallas going to be the team that could be the first team ever to give up a 3-0 lead after one loss? Mind you, they lost by 5. We'll talk about it. We're going to talk about some of the reasons they lost, but they lost by 5. It came down to the wire pretty much just like every other game, and they ended up losing. They're up 3-0. I think one thing that stood out to me before the game was something Kyrie Irving said, and it was like, this is their Super Bowl. This is another game for us. That's how they approached it. Like that's what it seemed like, at least on the Minnesota side. Minnesota came out swinging early, right? A lot of energy, but anybody that wants to panic and think like Dallas is in trouble because now we have to go on the road and play Minnesota in a Game 5, and it's possible that Minnesota wins at home, so now the pressure would be on us to win in Game 6, and then if we don't win in Game 6, now we got to win Game 6. I don't see a lot of those scenarios happening. Dallas in this playoffs hasn't lost a game back-to-back yet. So that's one thing going. So they lose one. Up to this point, they've won after they lost. They haven't lost 2 in a row. So you got to feel good going into Game 5. But it's like the overreactionary crowd, even on like some of the mainstream media this morning, was just like, did Minnesota find their groove? Should Dallas be worried? Is there a cause for concern? Like, no. There's a reason why. I think it's, 153, 154-0? That's what teams are when they are up 3-0. Only like 4 or 5 of those series have ever gone 7, and still that team that was able to push it and tie it 3-3 and enter a Game 7 never won the series. So like history tells you should feel okay. Minnesota only won 1 game. And let's be honest, Cat has been playing terrible. He has the game of his life yesterday. Anthony Edwards was able to find everything and get it going. They still, even with all of that, they only won by 5. We still had an opportunity to win the game. So just before we talk about that, before we talk about the game, I just wanted to address the crowd, like, calm down. It's okay. We're up 3-1. Now, I know teams have come back down 3-1 before, but you can't look at it like that because they were down 3-0, and no team has ever come back down 3-0. And I know Minnesota is going to keep telling you how much they believe, and if there's any team that could do it, it'd be us. The Lakers tried to tell us that. Any team, and I know after seeing Boston be able to go 7 with Miami last year, there's a little bit of cause for concern that it's possible. But that Boston team was so much more talented than that Miami team. Like that was a scenario where there was a talent gap, and really Boston should have never been down 3-0. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just talking about some of the factors that would have you a little nervous for losing 1 game against Minnesota. Now let's get down to it. I think Dallas sweeps if Derek Lively plays in this game. I think that's pretty much the obvious for everybody in Mavs Nation. Like, we missed Derek Lively that game. And then trying to get Maxi Kleber back. Shout out to Maxi Kleber for being able to play, for coming back. He's going to be ready. But if you thought Maxi Kleber was going to be able to fill the void that Dallas was going to be missing with Derek Lively for Game 4 in his first game back, then you were mistaken. Now, I don't think majority of Mavs fans or people, I don't think people thought Maxi Kleber was going to be the difference in a win or loss in this game. I think, you were hoping to get him implemented. You were hoping that he looks healthy and he looks ready to go and he kind of gets his groove. Maybe it's not a bad thing for a guy like Maxi Kleber coming back, who I think will be a big part once the Mavericks reach the NBA Finals. I think, he'll be a factor when we preview the NBA Finals because, yes, I am talking about the fact the Dallas Mavericks will continue on and they will continue that streak of teams that have been up 3-0 and never lost a series. The Mavericks will be in the NBA Finals. So sorry, Wolves fans, if anybody get, you're supposed to keep hope. And after last night, hey, it's a game at a time. I understand that. But the Mavericks going to handle business, whether it's in 5 or 6. We'll talk about that. But, Maxi Kleber, maybe another game under his belt and real game time action will be good for him, especially heading into the NBA Finals, where I think he'll be a pivotal piece. Got to stop saying that word, but it comes natural. But I bomb it every time I say it. I apologize. One thing I do want to point out, a certain player for the Dallas Mavericks. And I think the way he played last night in what did he play? He played 12 minutes, 5 for 8 from the field, 3 for 4 from the 3, 13 points. He gave us 13 points in 12 minutes, and that's Jaden Hardy. Now, I've said this throughout the playoffs. I think Jaden Hardy should get more minutes. I also think Hardy is going to be the clear-cut 6-man for the Dallas Mavericks next year. I think he is going to be the guy next season that Dallas is looking to get a spark off the bench. He'll be that 16 to 18 points per game guy coming off the bench. Now, I know that sounds crazy, him being a guard, averaging 16 to 18 when you got Kyrie and Luka, but we know through a regular season, I think he'll give you that type of spark that you'll be able to rest them a little more because he could carry the load offensively. Jaden Hardy is a guy from an offensive standpoint. Now, I know there's some questions defensively, and maybe that's why he's not getting more minutes, especially in these moments. It is the Western Conference Finals. You got to play your guys that are ready to go on both sides of the floor. And with Luka stepping up defensively, with Kyrie stepping up defensively, you got to find ways to get them breaks and get Jaden Hardy in. And I think all this is for next year. He's going to solidify himself as a 6-man. I think he should get more minutes, though. This dude can get buckets. This dude can kind of score when he wants. And I know he's young, but we've depended on Lively as a rookie to kind of handle business. You know what I'm saying? And he's been a big part of why Dallas is where they are. And I think, the lack of him not being there in game 4 was a big part of why Dallas is up 3-1 instead of sweeping Minnesota and thinking about the NBA Finals. So those are some things to look at for Dallas. I mean, you look down, the box score. Luka Doncic, 7 for 21, 4 for 11 from 3. 15 rebounds, 10 assists, 28 points. So 28-point triple-double. You'd like for him to shoot better than 7 for 21. Hey, Luka's not going to have a superb game every game. It's okay for your superstar to give you 28, 15, and 10 on a bad night, on a bad shooting night, shooting 7 for 21. 4 for 11 from the 3, still over 40%, so it's not the worst. I mean, you could shoot a lot worse than 4 for 11 from the 3. So, or high 30s, low 40s. I apologize for that. Kyrie Irving, 16 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, 6 for 18, 1 for 6. That's kind of the problem. Kyrie had a bad offensive night. I'm not saying Kyrie's the problem. That's exactly why we lost, and it's all on Kyrie. That's it. Kyrie had a bad shooting night. In this series, it's been on Kyrie and Luka. PJ Washington gave you 10. Derrick Jones Jr. gave you 9. Gafford gave you 12. Lively's giving you double digits points and rebounds since he's been in. So you take him out of there. There goes the equation and the rotation of the 3 bigs. But they've leaned on how good Kyrie Irving and Luka have been able to play offensively. If Luka or Kyrie have a bad night offensively, they probably won't win that game only because that's how the series is gone. The way Kyrie and Luka have played is the reason why the Dallas Mavericks are now up 3-0. So when I look at Kyrie Irving, he had a bad shooting night. It's okay. It happens. You're up 3-0. You heard his approach. And I'm not saying that he played lackadaisical or missed shots on purpose, but there was an energy gap between Dallas and Minnesota. There was an energy gap between the stars for Minnesota and Dallas. And that always happens in these scenarios. If Kyrie Irving comes in and treats this game like a Super Bowl, and I know you want him to, you want to treat every game in the playoffs like a Super Bowl. I understand that. But sometimes things just don't fall your way. And when the energy gap is different because Minnesota's playing in desperation, that's what they are playing for from here on out. And so Dallas gave them one, and I don't mean gave them one on purpose and the NBA is rigged and wanted to see 5. All I'm saying is Dallas didn't match their energy. They lost the game. They've adjusted well. They haven't lost back-to-back. So it's safe to assume that even though the game is on the road, they just went up 2-0 on the road in Minnesota. So a road game with Luka Doncic, who seems to be inspired while playing on the road, should be no cause for concern for the Dallas Mavericks fans. And who knows? I mean, Karl Anthony Towns shoots lights out. I mean, 4 for 5 from 3, 9 for 13 from the field, 25 points. Anthony Edwards gives you 29, 11 for 25, 2 for 5 from the 3, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. So Ant almost has a 30-point triple-double. Karl Anthony Towns shoots 4 for 5. He was shooting 4 of 32 from the 3 prior to this game. So you live or die with Cat being able to hit shots. He hasn't played good. So there's not much of a concern if I'm a Mavericks fan thinking that they're going to duplicate this 3 more times, while Dallas also has to duplicate this same type of performance, the same type of lack of energy 3 more times. I don't see that happening. Luka plays absolutely amazing on the road. It seems like a lot of times he plays better on the road than he does at home. So as a Mavericks fan, you got to fit. We okay. There is no cause to panic. Hopefully Derek Lively's available for game 5. I think that'll be the difference. If Lively can play in game 5, I feel very comfortable saying that Dallas will win game 5 in this series, and they'll take their break until the NBA Finals start. That's how much of an impact I think Lively has on both sides of the floor. I mean, come on. Dallas got out-rebounded. That's the first time in this series Dallas has been out-rebounded by Minnesota. Not a coincidence they get beat on the boards when Derek Lively don't play. And I'm not saying Minnesota do what they're supposed to do. They did what they're supposed to do. If there's a advantage that they could take, and whether it's a player's injured or whatever it may be, they took advantage of it and got them a dub. Like, shout out, hats off to them. That's cool. That's cute. It looked good. And I understand Anthony Edwards is the next Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant to some people. And so when he tells you he thinks he has a chance, a lot of the media is going to buy in. He's become the media darling, essentially the face of the league. I think he's a lot more loved than Luka Doncic. And I think Luka has an opportunity to be the face of the league, especially if they go on and win a championship. I think you start to have a serious conversation that the face of the league is, up here in Dallas. Up here in the city of Dallas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's going to be the face of the league, especially if they're able to go on and win a championship. So I understand there's a lot to buy into, and the media is going to sell you why you should think, if you're Dallas, you should be nervous. Like Mavericks fans should be nervous. If you're Minnesota, you should feel excited. If you're Dallas, calm down, chill out, and take a chill pill until the end of this game 5. Now, if it goes 6 and you start to panic at game 6 when Dallas is at home, I understand the closer it gets to 7, the little more you'll be concerned. But there's a reason why teams, and there's not a talent gap between Minnesota and Dallas to the point that I think Minnesota will run off 4 in a row. There's just not. Just because they won one game playing out of their mind. All I want to say, too, is they only put up 105 points with elite games from Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. I'm just throwing that out there. Dallas shoots bad, scores 100. Minnesota plays really well, or at least gets the game you've been waiting for from Anthony Edwards or Karl Anthony Towns. They only score 105. If Luka and Kyrie are playing absolutely amazing, they score 115. Dallas scores 115 and they win. It's just that simple. If Kyrie gives you 28 instead of 16 on a bad shooting night, they score 115. So there's not, and that's without Derek Lively. That's without even factoring the fact that Derek Lively didn't play and what he means offensively in the pick and roll, the lob game for Luka and Kyrie, what he means on the defensive end, what he means on the rebounding end. You could tell all of that was affected, and it was a lot harder for Luka and Kyrie to get their own buckets because that threat of the pick and roll, Gafford isn't lively when it comes to the threat of the pick and roll. Gafford isn't lively for the threat offensively of sitting in that dunker spot when Kyrie and Luka drive and dish. If Lively's in that dunker spot, there's a lot bigger threat on the defense. You're probably less likely to see Rudy Gobert step up and challenge Luka and Kyrie. And every time, it seems like a lot of times, every time either it was Gobert or Karl Anthony Towns, whoever found themselves down there in the paint in the middle, when they would step up, they'd have to pay because you either you kind of show a little bit and Kyrie and Luka take advantage of that and score, or you show all the way and they just throw that lob to Derek Lively and you just end up turning your back and seeing him way up there dunking the ball off the alley from Kyrie or Luka. That was the result a lot of times from Derek Lively, either on a pick and roll or being in the dunker spot in a set half-court offensive set. You were missing that. You could tell at times that you were missing that. You could tell at times when Minnesota was getting rebounds that, like, dang, some of these possessions go our way. Some of these second chance points, opportunities that are happening for Minnesota offensively probably don't happen if Derek Lively's in there. That's how much of a piece a rookie big man has been to the Dallas Mavericks. We can talk about Luka, we can talk about Kyrie, but him not being there, now you see, like, obviously if we miss Luka, if we miss Kyrie, like, then yes, that would be a bigger miss than Derek Lively. But sometimes you get to see when those role players are out, those guys that were key in those factors, and then they miss a game, you see how important it was. And so I think Lively showed his importance to Dallas. And everybody within Dallas knows how important. I think everybody with sense around the Dallas Mavericks and, fandom, fan base, we all know, I think you feel a lot more comfortable saying that if Derek Lively had played in this game, I think the Dallas Mavericks get the win. So there's no need to panic. That's kind of what I want to get on here and talk about. I mean, we could beat the Mavericks in for losing and being up 3-1. Like, oh my God, the consolation prize of you losing the game is you're still up 3-1. You still have 3 more, like Minnesota still has to beat you 3 more times in a row. And I just don't see this Dallas team really being able to do that. Giving up 3 games in a row. Like, I don't see this Dallas team being able to give up 3 games in a row, not with Luka and Kai, when really they could just go get it. And if Kyrie's on a hot night and he's able to just go get it, he could just go grab you a victory. Luka Doncic could just go grab you a victory. Like, they do have that ability and they will turn it on. And you're like, well, why don't you turn it on in a game 4 to sweep them? Like, they tried, but things were just swinging, Minnesota's way. And they had more energy. They were playing more desperate in every situation. Like, even in a situation where you wanted Dallas to capitalize, like the energy difference and how much Minnesota wanted it. And it's not that Dallas doesn't want it, just their backs aren't against the wall with their season on the line every game from here on out. Now, I know when I say that, you want Dallas to play like that because you want this series to be over. You never want to play with food. If you could have won 4, you don't want to go 5. If you could have won 5, you don't want to go 6. And if you could have won 6, you don't want to go 7. I fully understand that, but I'm just saying they're humans too when it happens. You get a little complacent. You may not play as hard, or this team comes to punch you in the mouth, and you may not be able to respond like you normally would because there's just a different type of energy. And the worst thing to do is have to play a team that's playing in desperation. Plain and simple. So I don't want to rant. I didn't want to get into too much the analytics. If you want to see a lot of film breakdown of the few things I talked about and kind of the importance of why Dallas missed Derek Lively, then make sure you go check out Mavs Chronicle film breakdown by my guy, Jericho. He was on the show a little earlier on in this series. But if you want a deep dive breakdown of the film of some of the aspects I was talking about and where they missed Lively and where the advantage would have been if we had Lively, again, make sure you check out Mavs Chronicle film breakdown. Brought to you by my guy, Jericho, all over Twitter. He does his homework. He's been doing his homework. He got plenty of videos for you to look at after listening to this to be able to kind of break down some of those scenarios that I was talking about in grave detail. Other than that, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you for listening. And we will talk to you the day after game 4.